Hello, my name's Florence. Welcome to the theobspod. I'm an NHS obstetrician, hoping to share some thoughts and experiences about my working life. Perhaps you enjoy Call the Midwife, maybe birth fascinates you, or you're simply curious about what exactly an obstetrician is. You might be pregnant and preparing for birth. Perhaps you work in maternity and want to know what makes your obstetric colleagues tick, or you want some fresh ideas and inspiration. Whichever of these is the case, and for that matter, anyone else that's interested, the theobspod is for you. Episode 129, CQC Maternity Survey 2022. Some of you that follow me on Twitter will know that a lot of my work on maternity experience over the last now 8 years started because of the CQC Maternity Survey. That is the maternity survey carried out by the Care Quality Commission, one of the quality assurance bodies for UK healthcare. This maternity survey used to be done once every 3 years. And then following the maternity transformation programme, Better Births, the National Maternity Review, became annual. This week, the Maternity Survey 2022 was published. And it is with a somewhat heavy heart that I am dedicating an episode to this, because my attention was drawn to the results by one of my fellow speakers from TEDx NHS, because the results weren't good. The results show a gradual decline in standards, showing that people's experiences of care, maternity care, have deteriorated over the last 5 years. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the survey, what those findings are, and as well as some of the difficult findings of the survey, some things about the survey that do give me hope. And in some ways, some of those things are about the survey itself and its methodology rather than its findings. Let's start with how the survey works. So the survey always looks at birth in February. And if you are a maternity service that cares for a very small number of women, they look at birth during January and February to enable sufficient numbers. This survey has always somewhat infuriated me because it's traditionally been a postal survey, even in recent years when really the idea of a postal survey is out of the arc. The other thing that infuriated me about this survey was the fact that the survey would be about births in February. Parents would be asked to complete the survey in April, May time. Reminders would be sent up to around August. Then analysis would occur. The maternity service, when I was clinical director, would receive some idea of our results in November, which would be embargoed, and the publication of the report would happen in January. And when this became an annual survey, this became impossible, because the results would become available in January only for us to repeat the entire exercise again immediately in February. So the time frame for the survey hasn't changed. Here we are, sitting in January 2023, discussing the survey results of birth in February 2022, and no doubt being about to start 2023's survey without any opportunity to have made improvement. But what has changed is that when I looked in detail, I discovered that this time there was an online option. People could finally complete it online. And therefore, the CQC maternity survey is finally moving into the 21st century. So that's one positive before we've even begun. The results showed that responses were received from nearly 21,000 women and people who'd recently given birth. And this was a response rate of 46.5%, which was a slight reduction. But that's not bad as an overall picture. 21,000 people, that's pretty good sample size. And okay, we'd like a higher proportion, but that's not bad. 46.5%. I mean, given that friends and family, we struggle to get people to complete it, I felt that that was actually not a bad response rate. However, the overall findings were that at a national level, people's experiences of care had deteriorated over the last 5 years, with trend analysis carried out on 26 questions on data from 2017 and 2022. Out of 26 questions, only one showed a statistically significant upward trend, i.e. improvement. 4 showed no change at all, and 21 showed a statistically significant downward trend. And of the 21 questions with downward trends, results for 2022 were at the lowest point for the 5-year period in 10 cases. And that's why I'm recording this episode with a heavy heart. All that work, the National Maternity Review, Better Births, all the work with maternity voice partnerships, all the work trying to improve women's experiences of maternity care. Has it all been for nothing? Why are we seeing such a decline? One of the explanations is the pandemic. They go on to say that the results for 18 of those questions declined during the height of the pandemic, 2021. A large decline in experience. 5 have seen a further decline in 2022, and 6 have stayed level with 2021 results. And they conclude that this indicated that some experiences of maternity services have not yet recovered to pre-pandemic levels, including care during labour and birth and postnatal care at home and in hospital. That's pretty fundamentally shocking. I mean, really? And when you look at the summary page, the positive result is hospital discharge. Since 2017, there's been a positive upward trend for women and other people recently giving birth, that there was no delay in their discharge from hospital, from 55% to 62%. That's not a particularly, yes, I guess it is important to be able to get out of hospital. It can be notoriously difficult. for us to release people with all the bureaucracy, discharge process. But I wouldn't say that would be top of my list if I was giving birth as being the most important thing to improve. The other positive result has actually been about mental health support. And that is a success story. And thank goodness, because there has been massive investment in maternal mental health. So there has been improvement in midwives asking about mental health during antenatal checkups, being given sufficient support for mental health during pregnancy, and also midwives and health visitors asking about mental health in the postnatal period. Key areas for improvement: availability of staff. Well, no surprises there. We've got a national shortage of midwives, and that is reflected in the answers people gave about being able to get members of staff to help them antenatally, during labour and birth, in hospital after birth, and also feeding advice and support. But what worries me is basic things. Reductions in confidence and trust, in whether you definitely have confidence and trust in staff delivering their care, whether that's antenatally, labour and birth, or postnatally. And also communication and interactions with staff. If we delve into it in a bit more depth, there are definitely some things that worried me. For example, looking at the statistical release document, page 36, it talks about the Hello, My Name Is campaign, encouraging staff to introduce themselves as part of delivering personalised and compassionate care. It talks about this being particularly important as labour and birth can last for a long time and there may be handovers of care between different health professionals. Since 2017, there's been a decrease in the proportion of women saying staff introduce themselves, from 86% in 2017 compared with 82% in 2022, although they note there has been an improvement since 2021. I mean, 82%, I suppose, if you think about that, that's not dreadful. That is a high proportion. But really, introducing yourself, I mean, this is the very basic thing. Surely that should be, I mean, I appreciate surveys, you're never going to get to 100%, but surely you'd expect that to be well up into the 90s. It really should be a given that someone looking after somebody in labour, bearing in mind that this is very intimate care, potentially intimate examinations, not introducing themselves, I mean, it's pretty stunning. And then, if concerns were raised during labour or birth, being taken seriously, that was 81% in 2017 and now is 77%. That is 23% saying their concerns were not taken seriously. And this is really important when you look at Embrace and maternal mortality and morbidity reports about women's concerns not being taken seriously, women coming repeatedly with symptoms or problems and not being listened to. So that 23% saying their concerns not taken seriously, I find really shocking. Again, there's a downward trend in women saying they were always spoken to in a way they could understand. And the majority of women continue to say they were always treated with respect and dignity, but this has fallen. 85%, having been 89% in 2019, pre-pandemic. And having confidence and trust in staff caring for them during labour and birth. 78% said they definitely did. And this has declined again from 84% in 2019. 1 in 20 women, 5%, said they did not have confidence and trust in the staff caring for them. 5%. Okay, that's a small number of percentages, but that's actually quite a large number of women. If you think about 21,000 women, 5% could be as high as 1,000 women. Then there's my particular old favourite. Historically, it's always been disturbing to me that around 25% of women are giving birth with their legs in stirrups or lithotomy, despite having an unassisted vaginal birth. And this survey is no exception. Unfortunately, despite the fact that they're talking about nice guidance stating that women in the second stage of labour should be discouraged from lying flat and that they find it uncomfortable, and this should be limited to facilitating procedures such as assisted vaginal birth, most women are still giving birth lying down, often with their legs in stirrups. So in this year, in 2022, we have 27% of women having an unassisted vaginal birth in lithotomy with their legs in stirrups. Why? Why would that be a good idea? Why would that be the case? And it even says women who did not use stirrups when their baby was born reported better than average experiences for questions on information provision in hospital and involvement during labour. And women who gave birth lying with their legs in stirrups reported worse than average experiences for the same questions. Not surprisingly, assisted vaginal birth, 84% gave birth with their legs in lithotomy. Well, you'd expect that. But it's the 27% with no assistance giving birth with their legs in stirrups. I can't get my head around it. If you haven't listened to my episode on the lithotomy challenge and a subsequent episode on upright birth, please do, because really think about it. Would you want to be in that position at one of the most important moments in your life? And how vulnerable and exposed would you feel? The other really difficult fact that the pandemic has had a massive impact on is the ability to have your partner with you, both in terms of the birth. So in 2019, when people were asked if their partner or someone else was able to be involved as much as they wanted in their care during labour and birth, it was 97%. During the pandemic 2021, that dropped to 84%, and now it's back up to 90%. But still a significant difference from pre-pandemic levels. And then, even more worrying, less than half of respondents, 41%, said their partner or someone else close to them were able to stay with them as much as they wanted during their stay in hospital. That's an increase compared with 34% in 2021, but compares with 74% in 2019. So that means less than half the people felt that they had who they wanted with them as much as they wanted during their stay in hospital. That means we are physically separating them from the people they want to be with at this point, this life-changing first few days. We're separating them from their loved ones, their people that they think can be of most help and support to them. That just feels really wrong. Some people said that was because of visiting restrictions, and others have said that that is because of a lack of accommodation. But that just should be an immediate something we could change, surely. Okay, that's enough of the negative. What about the positives? Well, you may remember I did an episode on the Black Maternity Experience Survey, and I also had some involvement this year in Invisible about Muslim women's experiences of maternity care. And for the first time that I'm aware of, the CQC Maternity Survey have done some subgroup analysis, trying to attempt to look at more granular experiences rather than aggregating everything up, separating things out a bit into different religions, ethnicities, and sexual orientation. And this is really a positive change, something I was really pleased to see. And it's also really interesting because in that subgroup, they actually found, contrary to what you might have thought, slightly surprisingly, that actually when you looked at Black or Black British identifying women, for quite a few parameters, their experience was better than expected or better than average, rather than worse. I was disappointed to see for a number of the subgroups there were completely blank rows. Particularly, I was disappointed to see blank rows for religions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, and also for specific sexual orientation, so gay, lesbian, and bisexual. However, if you click into the statistical appendix and drill down, it wasn't that they didn't have responses. There were responses for those groups, and they've just not included them because they're very small numbers. But they did have several hundred people that fit into those different categories respond to the survey. So from my perspective, that was a really exciting and positive development. It was equally exciting to see online completion of surveys by non-English speaking women giving birth, as well as a number of surveys that were completed with assistance of telephone translation. So inclusion of women who don't speak English or have difficulty speaking English is also starting to be acknowledged and facilitated. And alongside that, there was some discussion about the fact that they are going to develop and improve this in 2023, and they are going to try to boost the responses from some of these groups to allow more granular analysis, so that they're looking at their methodology to try and make it more robust. So I felt there's a distinct shift in their approach and their acknowledgement of the limitations of the surveys up to now, and a willingness to tackle this, which was really positive to see. Right, zesty bit. If you're working in maternity services, 2 zesty bits from the 2022 CQC survey. Introduce yourself. Come on, it's not rocket science, it's saying your name. And please, let's stop all this lithotomy for unassisted vaginal births. If you're pregnant and you're listening, and you happen to give birth in February, or you know someone who has, then please fill up the maternity survey. Give us your views. Give us good data so that we can use it to improve things. And if you're giving birth and it's not February and you're not going to be asked to contribute to the CQC maternity survey, then fill up friends and family. Give feedback in whatever way your maternity service enables you to. And if it's not immediately obvious how to give feedback, ask someone, ask a member of staff. How do you feedback about your care? Because only through you taking the time to tell us how we're doing can we improve. And I sincerely hope that one of the impacts of this deterioration in maternity experience will be not only for maternity services to try and improve things and do better, but just maybe for those policymakers and people at the top of the health service to take stock and think, hang on a minute, this is going in the wrong direction. We need to take action. This just isn't good enough. I very much hope you found this episode of the theobspod interesting. If you have, it'd be fantastic if you could subscribe, rate and review on whatever platform you find your podcasts, as well as recommending the theobspod to anyone you think might find it interesting. There's also tons of episodes to explore in my back catalogue, from clinical topics, my career and journey as an obstetrician, and life in the NHS more generally. I'd like to assure women I care for that I take confidentiality very seriously and take great care not to use any patient identifiable information unless I have expressly asked the permission of the person involved on that rare occasion when it's been absolutely necessary. If you found this episode interesting and want to explore the subject a little more deeply, don't forget to take a look at the programme notes where I've attached some links. If you want to get in touch to suggest topics for future episodes, you can find me at theobspod on Twitter and Instagram, and you can email me theobspod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.